United States. First I lived in New York for many years, then moved around a bit to Texas, Missouri, and now I live in Florida. I discovered chess by accident when I was about 4 years old, almost 4. Just in being at home, searching for something new and fun to do at home. And all of a sudden I'm opening a cupboard and one of those folded wooden chessboards fell out with all the pieces rumbling out with a big noise. My mother ran over, she said, "Oh, what happened?" I said, "Oh, that's it, only some chess pieces fell out." Of course, when I asked, what do we do with it? She didn't know how to play chess, so she said, "Wait until Dad comes home and he'll introduce you to the game." So that's how my chess career started, little did I know at that moment. I was very fortunate because my dad was very patient, being a teacher and a psychologist, but he was not very accomplished chess player at all. He was just a hobby player, but he knew how to teach. And he discovered, thanks to my interest in the game, that there is such thing as chess books. And he was, of course, for a while ahead of me, and he was teaching me slowly and patiently. And I had my very first success, still as a 4-year-old, when I entered the Budapest Girls Elementary School Championship. Still as a 4-year-old, and most of my opponents were double or almost triple my age. And not only I played, not only I won, but I won with a perfect 10-0, 100% score. So that was kind of the very beginning. And I described, of course, all of this in a lot more detail in the book Rebel Queen that just came out this spring. And I'm often being asked, why did I write the book? And of course there are many parts to that answer, but one of it is that if you, for example, go to my Wikipedia page, it has plenty of mistakes. I just wanted to set the record straight. So a lot of people heard of me, know a little bit about me, they quickly Google about me, and they get the wrong information or partially wrong information. So I wanted to make sure for my legacy that once and for all, it's out there, the way it happened, hear it from me, rather than from somebody else, misinformation. So in a nutshell, that's how everything got started. Obviously, I had a very eventful and fascinating life. You may wonder about the title of the book itself. Why is it called The Rebel Queen? Because inadvertently, I became one. The little girl who discovered chess very soon had to realize that chess is a very, very male-dominated field. And back then, we're talking about the mid-1970s, it was definitely not a welcoming place for little girls, or women for that matter. And even if I wanted to play in open competition against boys and men, I got roadblocks time after time. Even later on, when I was good enough to finish tied second, third in the Hungarian National Men's Championship final and qualify to the Men's World Chess Championship, I was told I cannot play due to my gender. So there was time after time situations that forced me to become a rebel, to fight on, to prove myself, one checkmate at a time. Hence the title, Rebel Queen. In that brief introduction, I'd like to open the floor for questions, and then we'll go in whichever direction you're interested in talking about. Yes. Thank you.
Notice I don't have a Chicago accent as well, and I originate from Asia.
What up, Zero?
I wanted to say that it's not possible.
Put y'all on the tripod.
Once we do play appropriate
sooner you start learning about it and immerse in that language, the more fluent, the more natural, lack of accent, and so on you'll have. And I think very much so about chess as well. Well, obviously not as early as in languages. You don't need to start that verse teaching the language, but I would say by 4, anywhere between 4 and 6. The second question was about organizing tournaments in the school, if I understood correctly, even including with the teachers.
Parents as well.
And parents. Absolutely, why not? I mean,
Was it done before, you know?
I don't know, honestly, I have not heard. Obviously, there are plenty of competitions for the kids, but to include the parents and the teachers even, I'm not aware of. But I think in any shape or form it can be encouraged, certainly not instead of the regular scholastic tournaments, but I think as a special, maybe around the holiday time, in the spirit of family and love and everything.
Yes, to build bridges between generations and witnesses. It's great.
Not only that, I would even suggest a slight modification to your idea, perhaps, and that has been done, I don't know if in schools, but outside of schools for sure, to have family events. Say father and daughter, or mother and son, or any combination, could be grandparent, So that's also an interesting idea, I think, and that could be done in 2 ways, right? That you play 2 separate games, and you add up the scores of the 2 games, or even by playing alternate rules. So there are many ideas, and there is no one-size-fits-all. Everything can be tried for a 1-2 way.
Yeah, I'm Alex.
Hi, Alex.
I'm teaching mixed groups, girls and boys, and I notice very few girls play same as aggressive as boys. Isn't that the main reason why girls are behind most of the time? Boys, the nature, in boys there is some nature to kill, and I think it's chess. It's very, as someone compare it with a boss, so harsh game. When you destroy it physically, you are so. Isn't that's the main reason? Not that some brain difference, but the nature of boys, woman and man.
That's a very complex question. First of all, you're right. Chess has been many times called the boxing of the mind, right? First of all, I want to know, which is very interesting, that many people don't realize that if you look at many of the top female players, and that's including my sister, Polgar, who is the highest rated ever female chess player, they are very aggressive. In fact, too aggressive, and they lack somewhat of the strategical depth and understanding compared to the top male players, and that's why they are not reaching the very, very top level. So it's arguable if it's true, because whether you look at former world champions such as Kostandin, for example, or many others, female players, they are much more aggressive player than positional players. So that's the start. Second of all, I don't believe necessarily that you have to be an aggressive player to be a good chess player. That's number 2. Number 3, I think the primary reason why there are not there is a other side of that coin. Yeah.
My name is Mark. Really glad you're here. Just two things in a different direction for a second. Number one, your life and your history seems to parallel to some degree Billie Jean King, and I don't know if you have thought about that kind of comparison. And secondly, so many people watched the Queens Gambit. What you see is your sort of part in that, or at least you identify a lot with it.
Yeah, so the first part of your question regarding Billie Jean King, of course, she has inspired me in promoting women's rights, women's opportunities in chess. In fact, because of her famous match with the Battle of the Sexes, Bobby Riggs, right, inspired my match, the Battle of the Sexes with Anatoly Karpov at its, I think, 20th anniversary or so. So, yeah, definitely she has been an inspiration. The other part of your question regarding Queen's Gambit, a lot of people, after it came out, including media outlets, reached out to me whether was it made based on my life story, but as we know it has not, because that's based on a fictional character and story based on a book, a novel. But obviously there are clear similarities, being a woman who is being a pioneer in a male-dominated film and breaking barriers. I became the first woman to earn the Grandmaster title by norms and rating. Obviously there are also numerous differences that I kind of feel sorry that, well, that's how it was in the book, so I know that's how it has to be in the movie, but it emphasizes too much, I think, on the fact that she was on tranquilizers and pills and, her lifestyle that I don't really think have enabled anyone to the success that the movie tried to portray. So that kind of gives a false image of reality. And obviously there's no parallel there in my life.
Yeah, the move, I just read recently online, maybe I'm wrong on that, 'cause I'm an old guy, so I forget. But wasn't there an 18-year-old from India who is a grandmaster now?
He's the world champion.
Yeah, she's 18. I
Yeah,
was a woman.
Lukash.
Okay.
Yeah,
What do you know about that? Do you know about that?
Yeah, I mean, Lukash, it's amazing, that at 18, he's already world champion. It's pretty remarkable. It shows both discipline and hard work and passion, when all those meet together and lucky circumstances, what it can result. And I think we're very fortunate to have him as a world champion. He's an exemplary athlete that shows, I think, to the next generations humbleness and a great ambassador.
Thank you.
Sure.
My name is in Argentina. I have one question. What is the best opening that you prefer? That you use most often?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to mention that openings are not the most important thing until you're master level, maybe 2000 plus. So that's to start with. I like to joke and say I like the opening that helps me win. But on a more serious note, over the years I kind of learned to play most of the openings. It's really not the opening, but how deeply you know it, how it fits your style. It's kind of individual to a large degree. As of liking, I used to like the Pixie a lot with black at one phase because it created very interesting dynamic positions. But later on, I played the Maran, and there are many good openings. It's really individual. Yes.
Quick question for you. My name's Travis.
Thank you.
I was wondering, chess career, what would be the biggest thing for advice on how to get to master level players? You had
How to get to master level? Well, it takes a lot of practice and perseverance. Probably the most important thing is that after you play, you need to learn from your mistakes. And that's where a lot of people fall short, that they love to play. They play online, one game after another. But then they are not so eager to analyze those games and learn from their own mistakes. So that's kind of the most important thing. Try never to repeat the same mistake twice. That should be the goal. That every time you make a mistake, you understand what the mistake was and what you should have done instead.
What is the most important thing about position or tactics? You have to focus on one thing.
Well, both are important. You cannot really pick and choose, but with that said, obviously tactics are more important in some ways, because no matter how amazing your position is strategically, if you miss a cheapo, a little tactic, doesn't matter that you had a +2 or +3 position strategically, then you got made it in the meantime, right? So tactics always outweigh strategy to start with. It's like you cannot have strategy without tactics. Obviously, at a higher level, when nobody really falls for tactics, strategy is very important as well.
What is your personal favorite phase of the game and why?
That's a question I don't think I ever was asked. Right?
Even to me.
Probably middle game, because it's so rich. It has really so many possibilities, whether it's strategy or tactics or long-term planning. It just has a lot of excitement. Yeah.
If I understood correctly, last focus philosophy was that if your child was eligible, then you could become I'm both parties, your age and your sister. We agree that gender is not an issue in state chess. It's an age issue. We're late and wanting to get better at chess. What hope is there out there?
Well, I think obviously age has its limitations in some ways. With that said, I think it can improve at that age. In fact, I'm very proud of one of my oldest students. And I used to run a chess center, kind of similar to this, a bit smaller, but in New York City. And one day, a nice elder gentleman, around 70, object my chess ball. And he was telling me that he remembers the Bobby Fischer era in the 70s, and he was always fascinated by the game of chess. But he was busy working, and it was too difficult for him. And now that he has more time, he loves to learn. Play. At my dance, obviously, right? And shockingly, he made an effort, and he became very passionate about chess. He fell in love with the game, and he became quite good in 1600, 1700 levels. From zero, not even knowing how the pieces move. I think that's pretty remarkable. So that gives you an idea, regardless of where you're at, that there is a possibility to improve at any age. Yes?
If you were still playing competitively, would you have any interest in playing chess 960 tournaments?
Absolutely. Not only that I would, I would my preference for sure. And I have to tell you that when I met Bobby Fischer back in the early 90s, and I influenced him to move to Budapest, my home city at the time. The only thing he wanted to talk about is shuffle chess. So shuffle chess is that earlier version in fact, thanks to the countless games that Bobby and I have played, probably more than any person alive today, we experimented. So the difference between shuffle chess that we started playing first versus the today's version of 960 is that back then we only had the 8 pawns on the board on each side, and then the first 8 moves of the game would be setting up one piece at a time in any random order. There was no restriction of symmetry. There was no restriction of the king being between the 2 rooks, so to maintain the right to castle. And there was no restriction of having the bishops in 2 opposite colored squares. So when I mean set up the pieces randomly, it was setting up the pieces randomly as part of your first 8 moves. So it was a mandatory first 8 moves to put all the pieces on the board, and then you could start the regular sense moving on the board the pieces. So we used to start playing like that, and we were debating, you know, should we allow castling, shouldn't we, should the bishops be potentially the 2 bishops of the same color squares or not. So long story short, at one point he says, okay, let me investigate this and let me talk to some mathematicians. And indeed he reached out to a couple, and he got back the answer that even with all the restrictions that I just mentioned, there are still 960 possible starting positions. And he was happy with that, because ultimately the whole idea of introducing Fisher random was to eliminate the lengthy studies of opening theories that has been, even back then, 30 years ago, already quite elaborate for his taste. And of course, as humans, having a hard time memorizing even the one standard opening positions theories. And he says, obviously, there is no way on earth that any human could remember opening theories for the 960 different starting positions. So that was the whole idea. And I'm proud and honored to say that I contributed helping Bobby finalize the rules of Chess 960 as it's known today. So therefore, I definitely, if I would return, that would be my preferred format, actually. Yes?
How's it going? My name is Emil, and I guess that around that question of 960, it seems that that's kind of a trend in the top level these days. Where do you see chess going as far as it's stepping away from classical chess to 960, and then on top of people using engines and cheating scandals, all this on top of that? How do you see personally the direction chess is going objectively from your point of view?
That's a tough question. One thing I clearly feel that chess is getting faster and faster pace for many reasons. A, because it's more dynamic, more interesting for audiences. I think for many players, it's also preferred because the tournament is done in fewer days than in our days. In my days, it used to be 2-3 weeks a tournament, being away from the family and your home. So I think that for sure will continue. I think that rapid chess or blitz chess will have more and more emphasis, I think, in our world of chess. We'll see about Chess 960. I think it will also find its legitimate place. I don't believe it will replace traditional chess, but I think it will be a variant that will be also respected and played. Obviously, it has kind of the advantage, if you want to call it as such, that you don't need to study openings. You can sleep, you can maybe go for a tennis match in the morning, and because you can't really prepare for not even knowing the starting position. Yes?
My kids were wondering that when you were younger, who was someone that you found inspirational? And as an inspiring figure yourself, I guess what I'll add to that is as an ambassador, both for women and chess, who's someone that you find inspirational now? Both when you were younger and someone now that you find inspirational?
I like to share a funny story, which I mentioned also in the book, one of the many stories. I remember I was visiting in Moscow when I was about 13 years old. Obviously heard so much about the famous Soviet School of Chess. My family and I wanted to see what it's all about. And during that trip, there happened to be a major international tournament ongoing as well, where the legendary Mikhail Tal, the magician from Riga, as is also known, also participated. And of course, he was one of my idols. I said, oh my God, what I would give if I could play even one game with him. And in those days, smoking was still allowed in chess tournaments. And he was a chain smoker, and between every move, he was going up and down the hallway with a cigarette in his hand and waiting for his opponent to think and make his move. So the day I was there, he was playing Rafael Maganyan, a world-class player as well. And I didn't have the courage to go up to him and ask him if he would be willing to play a game against me. But my mother, understanding this, she did. And to my shocking surprise, he said, let me go and continue my game. The shocking part was that within half an hour, he was back out and said, I'm ready. I said, oh my God, you know. So that was very inspirational, that kindness that he showed. And I have to say, I don't know how, but I started attacking him. He played a PHILIDOR defense of all things. And I was attacking on the king side, sacrificed 2 minor pieces. I was hoping that I can checkmate him. Unfortunately, the combination was only good enough for perpetual chess. And that first game I didn't draw. So that was kind of a very sweet memory I still hold dear in my heart to this day. Well, today I think we're fortunate because there are a lot of great players, and as I mentioned earlier, Bukash, I think, must be an inspiration, I'm sure, for perhaps millions of Indian young kids today, as was Anand earlier. Obviously, Magnus, I'm sure, has inspired a lot of young people, not just in Norway, but worldwide. Yeah, I mean, obviously, being a world champion is definitely part of being a role model for a lot of people. Yes?
Yeah, sure, it's my name. Yeah, you have met many world champions like Alan, Fischer, Spassky, Karpov, Newman. Do you have a favorite, or you don't want to claim that they were all unique in their own way, or do you have a favorite?
As you said, they are all unique, and if you read the book, you write quite a bit about those adventures with most of them. And like I just shared the story with Mikhail Tal, he's definitely a special one because he was always so kind to me, even when I was still not a grandmaster or not anywhere near his level, even just as a young girl. And then of course, Bobby is special because he was kind of in high with his disappearance, and all of a sudden he reached out to me and he wanted to meet me, and we became good friends for a while. And of course, Boris Spassky was also a dear friend for many years. So I like quite a big deal about Karpov as well, indeed. Karpov, we played 2 matches, but we played very fun games together, and yeah, we played well.
For the younger guys like Vocation and Magnus Carlsen, have you spent any time with them?
Yeah, I know all of that. Yeah, in fact, those eyes that, I don't understand your question. And I repeated my question. So he says, what do you mean? I think about chess 24/7. That's the only thing I think about. And it just shows, that tells you that what it takes to become as dominant as he was. And I have to tell you that other world champions that I had the privilege to pick their brains and get advice from, they all kind of share that same belief that for a certain period of their lives, maybe 3-4 years at least, when they were getting close to becoming the world champion, they really have put everything aside, or put rather everything ahead of chess, and do everything that can help them to accomplish the mission. That means they will do physical exercise accordingly that can help them with stamina during chess tournaments. They will watch movies, maybe from other athletes, that they can gain inspiration and source of ideas of how to motivate themselves, or how they eat, nutrition. It's like everything to support the ultimate goal. So they kind of all, one way or another, confirm this same belief. So it's not unique to Magnus or Wagner.
My name is Satya. So I have a question about the chess paradigm. So I think chess paradigm, what do you think like we have to skills that like express about chess that has actually given that express? And the second part of the question is like, what do you think the strategy well, like if you are using virtual players, what kind of like environment we create, or what are the things that we do?
Well, it's hard to answer in a couple of words. I write about it for the whole chapter in the book. But ultimately, if I can tell you one thing, is patience is the most important thing. Because kids pick things up at different pace, just like with the language, right? Some kids speak pretty okay by age 2, 2.5. Others just start kind of speaking at age 3. And it's the same with chess. So I think it's absolutely crucial to be patient and to teach the child in a fun way, where they feel that they are making progress every day. And that's another very important thing, to kind of consistency. So it's really important not to skip days. Because just like again with languages, it's better to learn an hour every day than 7 hours one day and then not see chess for 6 days. Because you build on it. Because the problem is when you skip even one day, especially if you skip multiple days, you will have to spend and waste time refreshing your memory of what you learned a week ago, right? So it's really important to kind of immerse in it every day, whatever time you are dedicated to it. And to feel the sense of accomplishment. So don't rush to study complex games of Bobby Fischer or Gary Kasparov or Magnus Carlsen, right? Start with small, break it down. Just like when you teach the child to read, let's say, right? You don't read Shakespeare, right? That's not where you start. That's where you end. Like you start with the ABC, then little cat and dog, small words, then easy sentences. So the same way you need to break chess down, piece by piece, motive by motive, fun movers, and only when the knowledge is solid on one level, basic level, then build on it, right? You don't start building the 10th floor of a building, right? You have to have a solid base, and you build level 1, you gradually and patiently. Because it will click, and you don't know when and how quick, and encourage obviously. Have a positive environment that, don't worry, practice makes master, you know, and exercise, create exercises, and there are many good books, like for example, my book series, Learn Chess the Right Way, that builds very systematically on the different patterns. So build it up so the child can feel a sense of success, accomplishment every day, as well as I know it a little better today. You build it a little better, little better, little better. And that's how it goes. Just like with a diet, right? Let's say I want to lose 20 pounds. It's not going to happen overnight, but if I keep doing the right things over an extended period of time, I can get there.
I am an honor to meet you. So in your chess journey, was there ever a time where you felt you hit a plateau, where you questioned whether this was the limit or if you could improve? And if so, how do you push through it?
Absolutely, I'm no different than anyone else. At various stages of my career, after my initial big success, I was going 10-0. There was a number of years really when progress was relatively slow compared to that big bang that I started with. And it was, to me, it was really what helped me get over each time that I got stuck on this, that I developed a curiosity for learning and for discovering the truth. And that was always really the driving force, more so than worrying about then I'm gonna get to the next level of grading or whatever else. And because I believe that ultimately that's the only thing that's in my control. To accumulate knowledge, to understand the reality of chess deeper and better than I did yesterday. That's the only thing in my control. Because when you go to a tournament, it's not in your control who you play. If that opponent will have a good day or a bad day, what opening they'll choose, they'll blunder. I mean, most of the things is not in your control. Really, the only thing that's in your control is to focus on your self-improvement constantly. And with that said, I got fortunate because my parents instilled in me very early the belief that hard work eventually will bring its fruits. So I had that very strongly engraved in me, that, and I saw it, you know, from early on, from my early successes, even no matter how gradual the improvement was, I knew that if I worked harder than others, there must be a result, you know, for that. And yeah, so it's just basically believe in hard work, believe in improvement, and eventually be patient. That's what I said in my last answer. That's what's key, be patient with yourself. Yes.
Stefan, is there any merit to bullet chess as far as?
And any what?
Merit to bullet chess?
It's a lot of fun. I think that's where it starts and ends. And it, some hand exercise as well. Yes.
I'm curious how you describe your own playing style at the time when you were the world champion, and how it developed to that style from earlier. Like, how do you describe your style at different points in the play?
I think it largely mirrors my personality as well, and I think that's quite typical for most chess players. That chess playing style is an image of their personalities. And I basically usually like to use control and have a solid base, so I'm not the one like a Shirov or a Topalov or a Pascal who likes to kind of risk it and burn bridges and whatever happens, kind of thing. Obviously they do it at a very high level, but that's just not my personality or chess style.
I'm Eduardo, pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You grew up in an age where Soviet chess was the top and the pinnacle. Admiring like their games, how did this expectation change or was compared to yours started actual case?
Sorry, I didn't quite get your question. So the Soviet school of chess?
How did the expectation change when you play against them?
How did it change when I started playing against them?
Yeah, how did the expectation change?
Yeah, that's very interesting because back in the 1970s and the 1980s when I was most active, the Soviet school of chess was considered like top because other than Bobby Fischer, they were very dominant, basically. And when there was a Soviet representative coming to an international tournament, it was the expectation that he's the favorite, and more often than not, they proved that they are the favorite for a reason and they won the competition. So with that in mind, obviously, most players had a lot of fear playing against them because of the track record that they showed that they are better than most others. Now, interestingly, even though I understood that, but perhaps because I met many of them early on, since my early teens, including that trip to Moscow that I mentioned. And I realized that they are also blood and flesh people. They also are nervous, they also make mistakes, they also feel a lot of pressure because they are expected to win a tournament. They are almost fearful to go home if they don't win the tournament. And understanding the psychology behind it, that, it's not like that is miracle. I somehow realized it quite early on that the chessboard still has 64 squares for them. The pieces still move exactly the same way for them. There is no magic in it, right? Just like when I was told that a girl can never be a grandmaster, but why not? So why would a Soviet player be better just because he's Soviet? Right? There's no reason for it. So I kind of, probably because of that same analogy that I proved time after time that guys are not better chess players just because they are guys. Why would the Soviet be better? So I probably quite early on managed to overcome that psychological barrier, and I was able to beat or draw many Soviet players early on compared to others because I did not have that fear factor as others did.
So speaking of psychology in chess, how would you rebound from a game that perhaps didn't go your way?
How I rebound
Yeah,
from a
like
lost
how would
game?
you kind of pick yourself up for the remainder of the
Yeah, obviously that's tough. It's tough for everyone. It's it depends how you look, right? There are losses and there are losses. But ultimately, my rule of thumb is during a tournament that there's nothing you can do about the past. You cannot change the result as much as we'd like to, we cannot. And with that said, it's important to, as quickly as possible, distract yourself, whether a good dinner, a movie, having some talk with friends, whatever it may be, distract yourself from that bad memory and move on because like we have other games to play still left in the tournament, that you need to regain your self-confidence and you need to save your energy for it. So it's really important to be practical about it and lick your wounds later after the tournament is finished and you're back home. Then of course it's important to study, buy rules, and learn from those mistakes. But immediately after the game or during the tournament, it's really, really important not to feel too sorry for yourself, but move on. It was an accident. Next game.
You've compared chess to learning a language. I was curious if you have any other analogies in your brain. Like, does it feel like art? Does it feel like a sport? What does it feel like to you?
Definitely, all of it. Chess is like life. Chess is like the miniature version of life itself because it's so complex, right? It requires preparation. It requires discipline. It requires patience. It requires planning. It requires analysis. It requires problem solving, decision making, right? I mean, I just mentioned like more than half a dozen adjectives that are key and crucial for life as well. And that is why I think chess is part of more and more school curriculums as well, because more and more educators worldwide and in the United States as well realize that chess can, in a playful way, help and teach kids from a young age to get used to all those situations, and it's really important to learn how to deal with them, how to deal with your emotions during the game, right? With winning and losing, how to manage risk assessment, right? It is just, the list goes on and on, that is part of a chess game naturally. You don't even think of it, but if you think of it,
I think most people with siblings have certain feelings about like competition with their siblings. So I'm curious, do you remember your feelings the first time that your sister was able to beat you in chess?
Well, that's a good question and a common question. My sisters are much younger than I am, so I still remember the days when I was helping change their diapers. And therefore, I was also one of their first teachers in chess as well, as in other things. But, so I always felt a special pride with my sisters as their coach as well. So I fortunately already accomplished quite a bit. I mean, even I won my first world championship title by the time Judith just learned how the pieces move. And then later on, I became a grandmaster. Then basically Judith started also becoming very strong, and within a year she also became a grandmaster herself. So it was beyond the sisterly rivalry because I'm so much older, I'm her coach, also their coach for a long time. And also it was something that, which again reflects the title of my book, The Rebel Queen, that I had to endure so much opposition and discrimination and roadblocks and challenges from especially the Hungarian Chess Federation back in the days, that it became us against the world, us against the authorities. And it was obviously mostly me, but then later on when we as a sister team won, representing Hungary, the Chess Olympiad in 1988, ahead of the Soviet Union and the rest of the world, that made us such a very strong family unit that by the time Judith really became my rival, let's say on an individual level, it was more about proving us against everybody else. It didn't have time or energy or desire, for that matter, to fight within, then we had to fight everybody else on the outside. Yes?
Hi, my name is Sahil from Chicago Chess Foundation. I was curious to know, having experienced the training methods from your father, is there anything that the modern educational system can take away from those methods or learn from how the way he taught you?
Yeah, I mean, I write about it in the book, and he, by the way, wrote the book himself, although it has not been published in English yet. To summarize the most important parts of his theory is to start early, specialize early, and be very, what's the word, gradually. Don't try to jump too quickly too high. Build on a very solid base, and I think before you came, we talked about it a little bit earlier, that's kind of the most important thing, to be patient and to build on solid building blocks, rather than trying to look at big games of Magnus Carlsen or Garry Kasparov, break it down like you would when you teach a child how to read. Start with the letters, slowly, little words, and so on, build it up. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of it. I write this lot more detail in the book about it.
Definitely, thank you.
What would you say is your toughest game, and how did you get through it strategically?
My toughest game? I had many of them, obviously. And some didn't end well, some did. One of my favorite memories of a tough game was against Ljubomir Ljubojevic, who was a world number 3 player at his peak. And before the tournament, when I was invited to an elite invitational tournament in Spain, he said in El País, one of the biggest dailies in Spain, that he is kind of doesn't understand why would women be invited to an elite chess tournament. And I had to face him in the second round of the tournament. So there was a lot of pressure, in that sense. And I was very proud that I played a very good game, one of my better games in my life, and I managed to show him why. And I beat him in style. So that was one of them. But of course, there were some others that didn't end so well. I think most games are tough. My attitude before every chess game is that I'm mentally ready for a 6-7 hour long game, tough game, and that's what I have to be ready for every single game. And let the opponent pleasantly surprise me, that it may be a shorter game or not such a tough game, but when you start a game mentally, that has to be the expectation. Doesn't matter who you play. You play somebody higher rated, lower rated, doesn't matter. Because any game can become tough, and that has to be the expectation.
In Rebel Queen, you write about, as a little girl, struggling to find opponents to play against at the time. A lot of men didn't want to play a little girl for various reasons, and you were even playing for chocolate bars against gamblers in the city parks in order to get a game in. Do you feel like that struggle to find an opponent, did that help make you a better player? Or if you had the access, like on chess.com, being paired with an opponent almost immediately, if you had that same ability back when you were a little girl, would that have been better than struggling to find an opponent?
Well, it's always difficult to compare different eras, right? Different times. I don't know, obviously, the answer to that. I certainly learned to value value the opportunity when I got it because it wasn't so obvious. Obviously, there was no internet, and we had to make special efforts to go somewhere. And then when we went to the park or the club to convince the people to give me a game. I don't know. I mean, obviously there was no internet, so it is different today. So I'm sure there are other struggles, making your opponent doesn't cheat, for example, or things like that, right? And also to push oneself to value that game, because that's one of the problems I think playing online. That while it's there, unlimited practically, 24/7, nobody else, you can always play a computer, right? But with that said, it's very easy to start not taking it as seriously because, oh, I lose this game, there is a next game, right? So it's a fine line, right? So if you want to look at chess beyond just entertainment and a hobby, and you want to get actually good at it and improve, have to find that right balance to play less games but take it more seriously. I think that's kind of important.
We're gonna have 2 more questions.
Okay.
In your chess career, is there wins that you've had where it didn't feel like wins to you that you didn't think you should have won, and games where you looked and missed something that you shouldn't have missed like 10 moves earlier, and do you beat yourself up over that, or do you get through that?
Well, of course, like many chess players, career, those things happen time to time. There were lucky moments. In fact, I write about one of them that helped me make my first Grandmaster norm. That was very lucky. But, and then of course I had some very unlucky moments when I had a game in my hand and I had it wrong. So it's just life. Both happen, and while you don't count on the luck coming your way, I believe that if you work hard and you know, give opportunities for your opponent to go wrong, you know, you can make your luck. Like for example, sometimes I'm being asked whether when to resign. When is it not too late to resign, right? There are some people, even decent higher rated people, play almost till checkmate or literally till checkmate. While others, sometimes even like Vasily Ivanchuk, a legendary player, in my view, resigns too soon. So there is, you know, both of that. I definitely belong to the school that wants to give my opponent every chance to blunder. You know, I believe a game is never won until the opponent has shaken your hand and signed the score sheet. That's when the game is over. And if you resign too soon, you definitely can never save one of those games. So I rather play a few extra moves. I mean, I don't play obviously the checkmate against a decent opponent, but I play a bit longer than maybe the average GM. And even if you save or turn around 1 out of 100 games, it's better than nothing. And there is no double forfeit just because you played them a few more games. Okay?
Victor, I have a question alluding a little bit to one of your previous answers, where you were talking about the role of starting early and being patient. I think in some of the previous interviews you also mentioned about the importance of passion. So do you think that passion is something that you can develop more and more? Or were you as passionate as chess when you were 4 years old as throughout your career?
I think your environment and circumstances will largely influence your passion. Like I know, for example, I was fortunate that my father was a very passionate chess teacher, more so than as a player. And he was great in transferring his passion for the beauty of the game to me. And I read stories of other great players, how they got started and how they became passionate about chess. Many times they were at home and they saw their father and uncle or whatever family members play, and they didn't even know how the pieces moved, but by watching them, they were curious and they got interested, and eventually passionate, So I know stories when people didn't know chess at all, playing soccer, and broke the leg, and ended up in the hospital, couldn't do anything, and got introduced to chess because of it. And overcoming that painful and boring situation in the hospital for multiple weeks or whatever resulted in falling in love with chess. So sometimes circumstances and your environment can help that. And I think being around other people obviously who are passionate about chess can enhance that and further that. And of course, we all like winning, so getting into situations where you get positive experiences, I think definitely is helpful as well.
Thank you. So the next stage of this is we're going to have everybody get in a line along down here, and then every one of you is going to be able to get a picture with Susan. So make sure your phone is out. You can hand it over to me. We'll get you a picture. And then after everybody, all the VIPs get a picture, then get back in line again where you'll grab your book if you bought one, and then you will write exactly what you want for personalized it. Make sense? And then after that, Chess and my wife put together an amazing spread for everybody so you guys can hang out with us for the next week. So why don't we go ahead and get in line? Susan, you need a few minutes?
Oh yeah. What's up, chat? Yo, it's good.
You live in Detroit now?
Yeah, I live in Michigan now, yeah.